In 1942, the Ministry of Food told every family in Britain to dig for victory. By the end of the war, allotments were producing over 1 million tons of vegetables a year. Then supermarkets arrived and we forgot nearly everything those wartime growers knew. But here is the twist. Soil scientists have spent the last decade proving that the old allotment tricks, the ones your granddad swore by, actually outperform modern methods. Number 17 was banned by most allotment committees in the 1990s, but RHS trials now show it increases yields by up to 40%. And number 7 uses something you are throwing in your wheelie bin every week. These 25 hacks were so effective that fertilizer companies and garden centers had every reason to make us forget them. Because if you knew what your granddad knew, you would stop buying half the products in your local B&Q garden aisle. Before we start, hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 smartest allotment hacks that British gardeners forgot. Number 25. Newspaper sheet mulching. Before weed membrane showed up in every garden centre at £4 a roll, allotment holders used yesterday's newspaper. They would lay 6 to 8 sheets of broadsheet, overlapping each section by a good 4 inches, then soak the lot with a watering can until the paper turned dark and heavy. A layer of grass clippings or compost went on top to hold it down and keep it looking tidy. The paper blocked light completely. Weeds underneath died within a fortnight. Earthworms moved in beneath the damp sheets and broke the soil down into something soft and crumbly. By the time the newspaper decomposed, usually 8 to 10 weeks, the bed underneath was weed-free and ready for planting. A Sunday paper cost a few pence and covered an entire raised bed. Modern weed membrane costs money, does not decompose, and eventually tears into strips that blow around the site like bunting at a sad village fete. Newspaper worked better, cost nothing, and fed the soil as it broke down. Your granddad would have looked at plastic membrane the way he looked at instant mash. Suspicious. Number 24. The bucket and saucer slug trap. Slug pellets were not cheap, and your granddad did not trust them near his lettuces. Instead, he sank an old jam jar or yogurt pot into the soil up to its rim and filled it with cheap bitter. Not lager. It had to be bitter or stout. The yeast smell drew slugs in from a radius of about 3 feet, and they drowned overnight. He would check the traps each morning with his flask of tea, tip the contents onto the compost heap, and refill. A bottle of own-brand bitter from the off-license cost next to nothing and protected an entire row of lettuce seedlings for a week. Some old boys swore by a mixture of water, sugar, and a pinch of dried yeast as a free alternative. Either way, no chemicals touched the soil, and no granules ended up where the dog could eat them. Modern organic slug pellets cost £6 a box and dissolve in the first rain. The jam jar never failed. Number 23. Fork twist aeration. Your granddad never owned a hollow tine aerator or a broad fork that cost 70 quid from a catalogue. He pushed a standard garden fork into compacted paths and beds, gave it a firm twist to open the soil, pulled it out, and moved 6 inches along. Repeated across a bed, this created air channels that let rainwater drain instead of pooling. Roots could reach deeper, worms could move freely. He did this every autumn after clearing the summer crops and again in late February before planting. Took about 20 minutes for a full-sized plot. The twist was the key. Just pushing the fork in and pulling it out closed the holes back up. The twist cracked the subsoil open. No machine needed, no money spent. Just effort and knowledge passed from one plot holder to the next over a brew at the allotment shed. Number 22. Rhubarb leaf pest spray. Those enormous rhubarb leaves that everyone threw on the compost heap contained oxalic acid, a natural pesticide. Your granddad would boil a few large leaves in a gallon of water for about 20 minutes, strain the liquid through an old pair of tights, and let it cool. Sprayed onto brassicas, it deterred aphids and caterpillars without harming the plants. The smell was enough to make cabbage white butterflies think twice. A single rhubarb crown produced enough leaves across a season to keep a whole row of cabbages clean. The spray kept for about a week in a sealed bottle. He never bought a bottle of pesticide in his life. Modern organic sprays cost £8 and come in plastic bottles the size of a milk carton. One rhubarb plant gave you free pest control for 30 years. Number 21. The Three Sisters Planting Method. This was not originally British, but allotment holders adopted it during the war and never looked back. Sweet corn, runner beans and courgettes planted together in a single mound. The corn gave the beans something to climb. The beans fixed nitrogen in the soil that fed the corn and courgettes. The courgette leaves spread wide and shaded the ground, suppressing weeds and keeping moisture in. 3 crops from one patch of soil, each one helping the others grow. Your granddad called it common sense. Modern gardeners call it companion planting and buy books about it. He would dig a shallow basin about 3 feet across, plant the corn in the center, the beans around it, and the courgettes on the edges. By August, the mound was a jungle of food, producing more per square foot than any of the 3 would manage alone. Number 20. Wooden board paths. Instead of buying slabs or gravel for paths between beds, your granddad laid old scaffold planks or floorboards directly onto the earth. He walked on the boards all season, keeping the growing beds either side free from compaction. But the real trick was what happened underneath. When he lifted those planks in autumn, the soil beneath was alive with worms and insects that had sheltered in the dark, damp conditions. He would scrape the worms onto the beds, flip the boards and leave them for winter. Free worm farming. The boards also suppressed weeds along the paths, dried quickly after rain so his boots stayed clean, and lasted years before rotting. When they finally gave out, he broke them up and used them as kindling, or added them to the bonfire pile for ash. Number 19. Comfrey liquid feed. If there was one plant your granddad treated with almost religious devotion, it was comfrey. Russian comfrey, variety Bocking 14, grew in a clump by the water butt and produced 5 or 6 cuts of leaves a year. He stuffed those leaves into a bucket, weighed them down with a brick, topped up with rainwater, and left the lot to rot for 3 weeks. The resulting liquid was dark brown, stank like something had died, and was the most potent free fertilizer any allotment could produce. Diluted 10-to-1 with water, it fed tomatoes, courgettes, beans, and soft fruit with a potassium-rich solution that matched the expensive tomato feed from the garden center. Comfrey roots mine nutrients from deep in the subsoil that other plants cannot reach. The leaves concentrate those minerals. Rotting them into liquid made those nutrients immediately available to crops. A single comfrey plant cost nothing to propagate. You just buried a piece of root. It came back every year forever. Modern tomato feed costs £5 a bottle and lasts a few weeks. Comfrey fed an entire allotment for free, year after year. Number 18. Stale seedbed technique. This was pure patience, and your granddad had plenty of it. 3 weeks before he intended to sow, he would prepare the bed exactly as if he were planting. Rake it fine, water it, and then walk away. Weed seeds already in the soil germinated in that time, covering the surface with tiny green seedlings. He would then hoe the lot off in one pass, barely disturbing the soil, leaving a clean bed ready for his actual crop seeds. The theory was simple. Every piece of soil contains thousands of dormant weed seeds. By tricking them into germinating early and killing them before sowing, he reduced the weed burden for the entire growing season. One hoeing instead of weeks of hand weeding. Modern gardeners sow straight into prepared beds and then spend the whole summer on their hands and knees wondering why the weeds are winning. Your granddad had already won the war before the first seed went in. First pattern break. Here is where things get interesting. Your granddad's water butt was not just a rain collector, it was a brewing station. He would drop a Hessian sack filled with well-rotted horse manure into the butt and leave it to steep like a giant cup of tea. After a week, the water turned the color of strong ale and smelled accordingly. This manure tea was diluted and used on everything. Hungry feeders like marrows and runner beans got a full-strength soaking every fortnight. Leafy crops got a weaker dose. The nutrients leached into the water over days, creating a slow-release liquid feed that modern controlled-release fertilizer pellets try to imitate for £12 a box. He got his manure for free from the local riding stables, delivered in grain sacks that themselves became the brewing bags. Nothing was bought, nothing was wasted. The entire fertility cycle of his plot ran on rainwater, horse manure, and patience. Number 16. Clothes made from old windows. Before polycarbonate cloches arrived at £15 each, allotment holders built cold frames and cloches from reclaimed sash windows and old glass panes propped together in an inverted V shape along the row. Two panes of glass leaned against each other over newly sown carrots or early lettuce, created a warm microclimate that brought crops on 3 weeks ahead of open ground. The glass trapped heat during the day and radiated it back at night. On warm afternoons, he propped one end open with a brick for ventilation. When the seedlings were established, the glass went back against the shed wall until autumn, when it covered late salad crops for a second season of use. A pane of glass lasted decades. Modern plastic cloches blow away in the first gale, go brittle after 2 seasons, and end up in landfill. Glass was heavier, yes, but it worked better and lasted forever. Number 15. Soot as fertilizer and pest deterrent. When every house had a coal fire, soot was free and plentiful. Your granddad collected it from the chimney, stored it in old buckets for at least 3 months to let the harmful sulfur compounds leach out, and then worked the weathered soot into onion beds and carrot rows. The dark powder warmed the soil by absorbing sunlight, added nitrogen and trace minerals, and deterred carrot fly because the strong smell masked the scent of the crop. A bucketful dressed an entire row. Slug trails through soot showed him exactly where the pests were coming from. Some old boys dusted soot around brassica stems to keep cabbage root fly away. It was pest control, fertilizer, and soil conditioner in one free product. When central heating replaced coal fires, the supply disappeared and the knowledge went with it. Number 14. Saving seed in brown paper bags. Your granddad never bought the same packet of runner beans twice. At the end of each season, he left the best pods on the strongest plants until they dried on the vine, rattling when shaken. He picked them, shelled the seeds onto newspaper, dried them for a week in the shed, and stored them in labeled brown paper bags hung from a nail. Paper breathed, seeds stayed dry. Moisture could not build up and cause mold the way it did in sealed jars or plastic bags. He had varieties that had been passed plot to plot for decades, each generation subtly adapted to the local soil and climate. These landrace varieties often outperformed commercial seed because they had been naturally selected by years of growing in the same conditions. A packet of runner bean seeds costs £3.50 today. Your granddad had not bought seeds since 1965. His were better than anything in the catalogue. Number 13. Burying kitchen scraps directly. Before compost bins became a thing you ordered from the council, your granddad dug a trench between his rows each autumn and tipped in raw kitchen scraps, vegetable peelings, tea leaves, crushed eggshells, the lot. He covered the trench with the soil he had dug out and left it over winter. By spring, worms and soil organisms had broken everything down into rich, dark humus, exactly where the next season's crops would root into it. No turning, no waiting for a compost bin to do its work. No buying compost activator. The nutrients went straight into the soil at root depth. He called them his bean trenches because runner beans planted along the filled-in trench the following May produced extraordinary crops from the rich buried organic matter. Modern composting advice makes it sound complicated. Your granddad dug a hole and threw his scraps in. Number 12. The 4-year crop rotation. This was allotment gospel and the single most effective hack on the entire list for preventing disease without chemicals. Your granddad divided his plot into 4 sections. Year 1, potatoes. Year 2, roots. Year 3, brassicas. Year 4, legumes and onions. Then back to potatoes. Each group had different nutrient needs and attracted different pests. By moving them around, soil-borne diseases like clubroot and potato blight never built up in one spot. Legumes fixed nitrogen that the following year's hungry potatoes consumed. Brassicas followed the nitrogen-rich bed. Roots followed brassicas in the cleaned soil. He kept a little notebook in his shed with a plot map drawn in pencil, updated each spring with a cup of tea in hand. No pesticide could match what simple rotation achieved for free. Modern gardeners grow tomatoes in the same raised bed for a decade and wonder why blight arrives every August. Second pattern break. Controversy incoming. Number 11. Your granddad watered with washing up water and nobody batted an eyelid. The soapy grey water from the kitchen sink, provided it was not too greasy, went straight onto the allotment via a bucket carried down the path. The mild soap actually helped water penetrate dry soil by reducing surface tension and the small amount of fat in the water-fed soil bacteria. During hosepipe bans, his plot stayed green while neighbors' plots cracked and wilted. Allotment committees started banning the practice in the 1990s over hygiene concerns. But recent research from the University of Sheffield found that grey water used on ornamental and edible crops showed no significant increase in harmful bacteria and actually improved soil structure in clay-heavy plots. Your granddad was recycling water decades before it became fashionable. He just called it not being daft. Number 10. Green manure over winter. After clearing summer crops, your granddad did not leave bare soil exposed to winter rain. He scattered a handful of field bean or crimson clover seed across the empty beds and raked it in. By December, a carpet of green covered the soil, protecting it from erosion, suppressing weeds, and fixing atmospheric nitrogen into the root zone. In March, he chopped the green growth down, dug it into the top few inches of soil, and waited a fortnight before planting. The decomposing plants released their stored nitrogen directly to the new season's crops. A bag of field beans for green manure cost pennies. Bare winter soil loses up to 25% of its nitrogen to leaching. Your granddad kept every atom of fertility exactly where it belonged. Number 9. Companion planting marigolds. Every experienced allotment holder grew a row of French marigolds along the edge of the tomato bed, not for decoration. The marigolds released a chemical from their roots called alpha-terthionyl that suppressed root knot nematodes in the surrounding soil. Above ground, the strong scent confused whitefly and aphids, reducing pest pressure on neighboring crops. Studies at Wellesbourne Research Station confirmed what plot holders had known for generations. A 10-pence packet of marigold seed protected an entire row of tomatoes more reliably than any spray. Number 8. Rainwater only for tomatoes. Your granddad insisted that tomatoes were watered only from the butt, never the tap. He was right. Tap water contains chlorine that kills beneficial soil microbes around the root zone. Rainwater is slightly acidic, which tomatoes prefer, and it is free of the calcium that causes blossom end rot in hard water areas. He would fill his watering can from the butt each morning and leave it in the sun for an hour so it was not ice cold when it hit the roots. Cold water shocks tomato plants and slows fruit set. This simple discipline, rainwater only, room temperature, consistent timing, produced heavier trusses than any feeding regime alone. Number 7. Crushed eggshell ring deterrent. Every boiled egg, every Sunday morning fry-up, every cake baked for the village show, the shells were saved. Washed, dried on the windowsill, then crushed into sharp fragments and scattered in a ring around young brassica and lettuce plants. The jagged edges deterred slugs and snails who would not cross the rough surface. As the shells slowly decomposed, they released calcium into the soil, correcting acidity and strengthening cell walls in the growing plants. Brassicas in particular crave calcium. A year of eggshells from an average family provided enough to protect and feed an entire row of cabbages. You are throwing this away every week. Your granddad never threw away anything that could go back into the soil. Number 6. Stinging nettle liquid feed. Second only to Comfrey in the allotment hierarchy of free fertilizers. Your granddad stuffed a bucket with young nettle tops, covered them with water, and left the mixture for 2 weeks. The resulting brew, diluted 5:1, delivered nitrogen, iron, and magnesium directly to leafy crops. Cabbages, kale, and chard responded within days, leaves darkening with vigor. Nettles grew everywhere for free. The only cost was a pair of gloves and a tolerance for the truly appalling smell. Number 5. Cardboard sheet mulching for new beds. When your granddad took on a new plot overgrown with couch grass and dock, he did not hire a rotavator. He laid flattened cardboard boxes across the entire surface, overlapping generously, and covered the lot with 6 inches of compost or well-rotted manure. Within a single season, the grass beneath had died and decomposed. Worms had pulled the cardboard down into the soil, and the new bed was ready to plant without a single session of backbreaking digging. He called it lazy man's gardening. Modern no-dig advocates now teach this as revolutionary. Your granddad was doing it in 1973. Number 4. The cold tea and coffee grounds trick. Cold tea went straight onto the blueberry and azalea beds. The tannins lowered soil pH, exactly what acid-loving plants needed. Coffee grounds went around the base of roses and into the compost bin, adding nitrogen and improving soil texture. Between tea and coffee, the average household produces enough organic matter each week to maintain 2 or 3 acid-loving shrubs in perfect health without buying a single bag of ericaceous compost at £7 a pop. Number 3. Double digging with organic matter. Your granddad double dug his plot once every 4 years. He would take out the first spit of soil and barrow it to the end of the bed. Then he would fork over the exposed subsoil and work in a thick layer of manure or compost. The next row's topsoil went into the first trench, and so on down the bed. The result was 2 feet of loosened, enriched soil that roots could penetrate deeply. Crops grown in double-dug beds consistently out-yielded shallow beds by 30 to 40% in RHS trials. It was exhausting work, done on a cold February morning with a thermos of tea, but the results lasted years. Third pattern break. Number 2. Your granddad kept a jam jar of used cooking fat on the shed shelf. Not for chips. For the birds. He mixed the fat with seeds, oats and breadcrumbs, pressed the mixture into halved coconut shells, and hung them from the fruit trees and bean poles. The birds that fed on his plot all winter repaid him in spring and summer by eating caterpillars, aphids and slugs. A single blue tit family consumes up to 10,000 caterpillars while raising 1 brood. Your granddad was running integrated pest management 30 years before the term existed. He just said he liked hearing the birds sing while he dug. Number 1. Passing it on. The greatest allotment hack of all was never written in any book. It was the old boy 3 plots down who saw you struggling with blight on your first-year tomatoes and wandered over with a cup of tea and 50 years of knowledge. He told you about the rotation, showed you the Comfrey, gave you a paper bag of saved runner bean seeds from a variety that had been on the site since 1958. He did not charge you. He did not sell you anything. He just talked, and if you were smart, you listened. That knowledge network, those shed conversations, those seed swaps by the water tap, that was the real infrastructure of the British allotment. It cost nothing and it was worth everything. We lost it when waiting lists grew and plots filled with people who learned from YouTube instead of from the bloke next door. The hacks on this list work, every single one of them, but they work best when they are shared over a flask of tea with soil on your hands. Here is my challenge. Try one of these this week. Just one. The Comfrey feed, the stale seedbed, the newspaper mulch, the bean trench. Then come back and tell me if your granddad was just being old-fashioned or if he actually knew something the garden centre does not want you to find out. Share which one you're going to try in the comments. I want to know if the eggshell ring gets more love than the nettle brew. I want to see if anyone else's granddad kept a dripping jar on the shed shelf for the birds. Because these were not just gardening tricks. They were wisdom that an entire industry wanted us to forget. Your granddad knew. Now you know too.